Time flies when you're having fun. It is 2025. Can you believe that? Lyndall here again with Marshfield Old School Times. I've got two good friends with me today that are going to be our guests, Chris and Scott Davis. Welcome, Davises.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You bet. We been looking forward to this. Interesting couple. Have done a lot of fun stuff in their lives, and so I think we'll have a good time today. Thank you, Logan, for showing up for to be our producer, and I always want to thank Dennis Beck for our theme song. You know, it's hard to believe I still got the Santa Claus and the stocking up, but that Christmas is over. But I do want to make sure that we all remember people that you know, maybe have some loneliness this time of year. The weather's going to turn on us today. It's going to get a little bit nasty out there tonight. So let's keep all those people in our thoughts and prayers, those that are sick and ill. And we've had some trauma occur in recent weeks with the various families. So keep them in our thoughts and prayers as we begin this new year. And hopefully we'll all have a great 2025.
Absolutely.
With that, let's get started. We got a lot to cover today and a lot to talk about. Chris and Scott, you guys, Marshfield natives, Marshfield grads, graduating in 71 and 72, correct?
That's right.
And so we'll kind of start at the beginning. That's where we like to start. You know, our good friend Gary Price was a guest on our show once, and that's Elkland Gary Price.
Mhm.
And
Well, we know Gary Price.
yeah, we know you know Gary Price.
Long Gary Price.
Yeah. And I asked Gary to get started. He said, okay. He said, I came to America in 1951 or whatever it was. And so we kind of use that as our kickoff. You know, when did you come to America?
This being America, right?
Yeah.
We weren't exactly natives, either one of us. I was born in Nebraska.
Yeah,
A small town in southeastern Nebraska.
Okay.
Lived there for a little while as a small child. Then we lived in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
And spent a couple 3 years there, I suppose, and then back to Nebraska. But then we moved to Missouri due to family connections. My dad was born in this area down in the country between Conway and Lebanon and
Like
down in there.
The other David, all the Davises.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was Jim, right? Or
His-
James?
Yeah. It was Jim Davis.
Yeah.
But then his family moved around a lot and ended up in Nebraska. So he spent his last years of growing up in Nebraska and was drafted into World War II from Nebraska.
Uh-huh.
But he always wanted to get back to the area. So that's what it brought us back
Sure.
down
sure.
here. It was
sure.
his dream of being back in this area.
Right.
So that was 1959. So started school here. So I went all 12 years
Okay.
in Marshfield High School.
Downstairs.
Yeah,
Yeah, this building. Yeah.
down in the donut shop, I think, or
Right.
else either
Yeah.
that one or the room behind it. One of
Yeah,
the
that was the lower level was the elementary school in those days. Now, prior to that, when that was the gymnasium down there, and we've talked about this before on the show, elementary was above it on this set of classrooms right over here on the east wing.
I didn't even
my
know.
my folks went to elementary school there because the gym was below it. That was the gym under there.
Oh yeah. Forgot about
But
that.
so, did you any brothers and sisters?
No,
Okay.
I had one little brother passed away at birth,
Right.
but no, I was a only child up in
Yeah.
till
And your mother was Vi.
That was right.
And a great lady. We knew Vi from church, growing up in the Methodist church here in town, and she was certainly a very devoted attendee. Remember, Sunday school teacher and Bible school teacher and all that kind of stuff. So,
But I never I did have two different sets of step brothers and sisters along the way.
Right.
Came much later on.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. Chris,
Sure.
why don't we get you kicked off? Where did you
Well,
start your
I was born
trip to America?
born in Springfield
Uh-huh.
at the old Burge Hospital.
Yep. So was I.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
and but my folks were from Ash Grove and Willard,
Okay.
Willard, America, as my dad would say.
Willard, America.
Willard,
Yeah.
America, and then that's where my mom and dad met. And then my dad was in the Air Force, and he was getting ready to go to Germany. And if my mother married him, then he would only have to stay 18 months or something like
Oh,
that
really?
instead of 4 years. And so they got married, and then I was born 9 months later.
Mhm.
And so when Dad finally came home, I was 9 months
Yeah.
old and didn't like him. at all. He messed up my whole routine.
Your dad?
Oh yeah. You got him moving back in.
Yeah.
And then at that point, then my mom and dad had a farm in Ava. And another brother was born through the Air Force in Salina, which was my brother Ray. And then Dad got out of the Air Force. They had the farm, and they lost 2 babies,
Oh.
and which made it very, very difficult. And they lost the farm. They lost
Oh, wow.
everything. And so my dad,
This would have been like the late 50s, maybe,
yeah,
or something.
would have been before 58
Yeah.
because my brother Todd was born in 58.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But my dad then went to the Navy was taking people. The Air Force wasn't taking anybody, so he couldn't go back into that, which would have been really sweet too. So he had to go back in as a seaman.
Oh, really?
And so when he went back in, then he was stationed in Maryland, where Todd Skinner was born, and then which is my maiden name.
Mhm.
And then after that, traveling back and forth across the United States, we did that a lot. But every time we would come across the states, our vacation, our big wonderful thing was stopping here.
Yeah.
And we would stay 2 weeks in this area. So the last time they did that, they then looked for a farm.
Mm-hmm.
And they bought the farm out at Timber Ridge.
Mhm.
And so they had the farm there. And then we had that for a long time, and somebody else rented it. And then we eventually moved back. And
Yeah. So now, did your mom and dad, was he affiliated with the Fordland Air Base at all?
no,
Okay, I wasn't sure. There's a
no.
lot of couples about that era that met their spouses because the gentleman was transferred up to the Fordland Air Base in the Air
Mhm.
Force in the 50s, late 50s, mid 50s. I was
Yeah.
just curious since
No, Mom, Dad,
that was that era, and you mentioned he was the Air Force and then had the farm at Ava.
And great pictures from
Yeah.
when Dad was there. And he had big German shepherds. He was an MP in the
Oh,
Air
yeah.
Force, and which is real surprising
Hmm.
because he had big dogs. And through our whole life, my dad didn't care for dogs.
Yeah. Now,
And
was your mother from the Willard Ashgrove area
Ash
too?
Grove.
What was her maiden name?
Her maiden name was Anderson,
Anderson. Okay.
and then my grandmother's maiden name was Yoakum.
Okay.
And so that's from the original Mammy Yoakum,
No kidding.
Arkansas. Yeah.
My great grandmother was an Anderson.
Really?
Yeah. And so,
S-O-N?
all the
S-O-N?
SON, all the Webster County Andersons back in the day, Jerry Anderson that played basketball, and Martha McGrath and the McGrath guy boys, their mother was an Anderson. And
No kidding.
yeah, Mr. Garst's wife Edith was an Anderson. And
Mom's relative that way came from France, and he had this man's name was Robert Anderson, and he had 5 sons.
Mhm.
And their names were all Robert.
Oh,
But they
yeah.
I guess they had nicknames or
Yeah, middle
secondary
initials or
names,
something.
like that.
Yeah.
And they all came to this country.
Yeah,
And so that's how that all
Interesting.
began.
It's always neat to figure out connections. I find that
Oh,
intrigues me how
and
there's a spider web out there,
Yeah. And you're connected.
somehow. Yeah.
You'll be
generally.
talking to somebody,
Mhm.
and
He really confused the family tree with 5 Roberts, didn't he?
yeah. Well, the same thing with the Yokums. When there were 5 brothers, the Yokums all went in, and they could neither read nor write. And so the clerk that was taking their information, the clerk spelled it. So there are 5 different ways to spell Yokum with all those brothers
Oh,
going
yeah.
into the military.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. That was down in Arkansas Mountain Home in that
Mhm.
area.
Scott, your mother, what was her maiden name?
Dorn, D-O-R-N.
Yeah, Dorn. And
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit more about her, because I know you got
Yeah.
connections with cousins and so
Sure,
forth.
sure. Her, of course, she grew up in Nebraska, in southeastern Nebraska, and but her family also had connections to southern Missouri as well. Her mother, my grandmother's last name was Moore, and they were from the Carl Junction, Missouri area.
Uh-huh.
And it was a time when people moved back and forth between where the jobs were.
Mhm.
So their families had been in the Joplin area and all of that to work in and around the lead and zinc mining
Yeah,
that went on
that was
in
big
that
back
area.
then. Yeah.
And then when that was not good, they would go back to their agriculture related areas, and in Nebraska is what they probably preferred.
Mhm.
So there's lots of cases of them going back and forth, but hers was Dorn, and they then there is further from that when we came to Missouri, it was several years later. But then one of her brothers, John Dorn,
Yeah.
and his
Many of us
family-
remember John, of course.
Yeah, a lot of people remember John with the pump company
Started
here
the
in
pump
Marshfield.
well service.
Bought it from Atkinson. A guy
Okay.
named Atkinson. It's a whole big family around here. But then his children are still here. Vicky Stevens and Lori Lippy.
Right.
But then, of course, John and Joanne, they were killed in a car wreck when they, in 1976, and their girls were teenagers, and they ended up staying with my mother.
Yeah.
While they she and they finished raising
That's
her.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Became a second mother to him, I suppose. Yeah. Again, another tribute to your mother as a
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
person.
Be some
Very good person.
stars in that crown.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course those ladies are we grew up together. I mean, they're both a little younger than I, but good people and raised good families, and very productive citizens to Webster County for sure.
Scott's mom and dad owned the laundromat.
Yeah, and I remember that. Jackson Street.
Yeah, it's now the shelter insurance
Yeah,
agency.
yeah. I
And
remember
before that, had the plumbing business in town.
Okay.
Marshfield Plumbing.
Yep.
And so they did.
Carl Terry, did he buy that laundromat from your dad, or after your dad died or something? He was involved somehow, or maybe his wife worked there folding laundry. I remember Mom going in there and
I don't
having somebody
remember
fold some
who
laundry or
bought it.
something.
They bought it from a man named Shannon. His last
Shannon
name.
Laundry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah. Okay.
that probably was Carl Terry bought it.
There was
after.
something. I remember a connection to his wife was in there working or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I've
And-
kind of forgotten that.
Yeah.
Carl Terry was the one that my mom and dad contacted, and when we started looking, they were looking for a farm.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting on the curb over in Seymour with
Yeah.
my three brothers and keeping an eye on them while they went out to look at a farm. But Carl Terry was the one that showed them
Yeah,
several
yeah.
different
He
places.
was a real estate guy, and I guess he was also the public administrator back there in the day. for
And
a
he
while.
sold the Grit newspaper.
Sold the newspaper. Yeah. Speaking of that, you remember Steve Potter? Didn't he carry? He delivered grit.
I think
Yeah.
yeah.
He carried it around town. I remember coming to my grandmother's.
One of those enterprising young people that
Yeah,
wanted to have
yeah.
the money in their pocket.
That's right. That's right. So, then your dad passed away fairly young, right?
Yeah, he was only 45.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sudden heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Scott was 15.
Oh, yeah, I was 15.
And your mother married another Davis.
Yeah, she liked that name so well. She did it again.
Made it easy, didn't
She
it?
didn't even have to change her social security.
That's right.
number,
That's right.
Yeah.
you know? And I
Yeah.
think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had a good
Yeah.
period together
Yeah.
for a long time. They traveled a lot, went to a lot of different places.
That was Cecil.
Cecil was a Pearl Harbor survivor.
Right. Uh huh.
And so they went to Hawaii often
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
big
Celebration. Over. Yeah.
celebrations.
Yeah, they were
memorials.
and there was organizations all over the country. They went to ones in Springfield. There was still a survivors group there, and they went to all that.
Yeah.
Went to Ireland one time for the Angus Association.
When you think about that, as many soldiers that were actually killed, I mean, that the survivors group would be a pretty close group, I would imagine.
Every one of them had a story.
They'd all have a story, and there probably wasn't that many. I don't know. I mean, well, I'm saying there may have been a couple thousand, but it wouldn't have been like there would have been a whole bunch of them. I wouldn't think, because there were so many that was killed. I guess civilians and soldiers, but anyway. So that kind of brings us to high school. You guys, now you did date in high school, I think, and I just happen to have a picture here I'm going to show. So they happened to make the retrospect annual yearbook. This would have been in, I think, Scott's year, 71, when he graduated. He'd have been a senior. Chris would have been a junior. And so we have a picture here at the barn warming dance. Right?
Sadie Hawkins dance.
Yeah. This is Chris right here. And this is Scott right here. But he's getting a little hug from, I guess that's Rhonda Kudamelka, right?
Exactly.
Which Rhonda recently passed, I
Yeah.
think. Rhonda Edge. But anyway, so they started their romance as early as those days. And then, of course, this other picture, right? Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah, that one. And, of course, the caption on this one says, I think Harry is getting suspicious. I'm not sure who Harry was. We won't go down that path, but may not want to talk about that. But anyway, those are kind of cute pictures from high school days. And then
It's kind of funny how Chris hasn't changed at all.
no, well, her hair's a little lighter now.
Yeah, my hair's lighter. Yeah.
But and then of course we always like to have a little fun and kind of show. Where's yours at here, Scott?
Oh, the
Your senior picture.
Oh, it's, I think it was to the left there, down in the lower corner.
I'm missing it. Yeah, there it is. So here's Scott's senior picture. Right here. I'm backwards. Right there. And that picture, because it was such a quality picture and such a handsome young man, he became the retrospect king that year in the annual. And then, of course, Chris, we have her picture here. And this would have been a year later, 72, right here. Very attractive couple. And that, again, that romance began in those days. So you guys, anything you want to mention about the high school days besides the Sadie Hawkins dance? Anything else that comes to mind? You didn't, get in any trouble or anything, did you, Chris? You don't have to talk about that.
No, not me. I mean, I had a dad I was definitely afraid of. So.
Yeah.
So with the military like that.
Yeah.
No, it was pretty clean cut.
Pretty clean cut couple.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had a lot of good friends, a lot of great times in high school, and I wasn't ever a good athlete, so I went the band route and enjoyed that. We, of course, the band was kind of prestigious, at least
Very
at that
good
time.
those days. Absolutely.
We were won a lot of contests and marching and stage and.
What instrument?
I was tenor saxophone.
Tenor sax. Okay. Yeah.
And then in the concert band, I played a baritone saxophone. And then, because I was the only one that was willing to do it, in the marching band, I carried the bass drum. So.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
Bigger, but I always tell everyone this. When I first came here, I was my sophomore year, and my very first day of school. And you have to know that I came from military bases, but we went to public schools, and it was very hard.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very hard. And when I came here to Marshfield, my very first day I was here, this girl ran up to me and she said, "A bunch of us are going to be running around this weekend. You want to go with us?" And I swear, I thought I died and went to heaven.
Yeah,
I
that
really
was
did.
neat, wasn't it?
That was Patty Jane McDonald.
Yeah.
And then it just went on from there. And still have the great friendships. And, there were probably 12 or 13 of us.
Yeah, when I recall, you had your 50th here a couple of years ago. You guys had a great turnout, great group, a lot of camaraderie and a lot of friends.
We still get together for a meal.
Yeah,
we did.
That's great.
Right before, and who can come, can come. If it's just two of us, it's a party. Just to catch up.
Sure. The Big Wig and the Dairy Princess and all those places were the hangouts, right?
Was it the townhouse?
Townhouse, yeah. It was. Had it started by the time you were in high school? It might have been right about that time somewhere.
I know it did with my brother Ray.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It wasn't long after that.
Yeah.
I think Townhouse was after my time.
A little bit. Yeah. Not much.
I was definitely driving around the square in the Big Wig and.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that was during the Strakers. That ran through the
townhouse. Yeah. That was about 77, 6 or 7 when I was in high school. And what about the garbage can? Do you remember the garbage can? I guess.
Barely.
Yeah.
Barely. I know it was there, and
yeah.
I wasn't ever a frequenter of that. That was too far away.
There's some late '60s stories about the garbage can. Some of those guys could tell you some stories out there.
Mm.
The camaraderie or the pranks that went on. But
I think my brother has one of the little booth tables and
really
a bench out of that. Yeah.
That's cool.
He's very proud of that.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you guys go to college?
When I came back in September, we went to Illinois. My dad got transferred, maybe recruited to Joliet, and I had told you earlier that, unbeknownst to me, my grandmother had cancer.
Yeah.
And we went up there to stay with her until she passed, and then we came. My folks brought the 4 of us back so that we could start in September, which was my senior year. again, that was the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me,
Yeah.
that I could come back and go to school here.
Sure.
And then quickly after that, I didn't date anybody in high school, and Scott had already gone on to college.
I see.
College girls are a lot more fun.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, they were.
we won't go down that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But Scott went on, he
Yeah.
was, a little
Uh-huh.
bit 6 months older, and
Yeah.
he went on to college.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And
So,
I went
so
to
you
work.
actually didn't date in high school. You dated when he was in college, but you were still in high school. Is that kind of right?
No, he was a senior,
Okay.
and
I
I was
see.
a junior.
I see.
And then he graduated before I did, and
Gotcha.
and then went on
Gotcha.
to,
Okay.
Missouri State.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's where I went to college.
Yeah,
Missouri
yeah,
State. I
yeah.
was on the multi-year plan.
Yeah.
And,
Did you play in the band up there?
No, I did not.
Now, did you start your rock band career then or later?
Oh no, that actually that went way back to like junior high.
Okay.
Where Tom Robinson,
Uh-huh.
Mike Lujan, and I, and another guy named Mike Morris and David
Mhm.
Stowe. We had a little thing that
Garage band.
yeah, a little garage band that we played several times.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of drifted where it didn't do it anymore. And
Yeah.
during the college days, I'd get together with people once in a great while and
Yeah.
play anything.
Yeah.
And like fraternity stuff, we did a few of those kind of events and all that, and that was a lot of fun. But not any kind of a steady deal.
Right. You
But-
played guitar?
Then I began playing guitar along the
Mhm.
way, and
Yeah.
not well. Never had played well, but I enjoyed doing it. And
There was a lot of guys from that era, or maybe back a little bit, that played a lot of music, and later on, like Mike Cruz, phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Robinson's a phenomenal musician.
yeah, he
Oh,
still
he's-
does.
he's-
Yeah, still plays, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to see. And of course, then there was a group more my era that are still playing.
Absolutely.
James River Band and
Well,
different ones.
and my youngest brother, Darren Skinner, then they had a big band.
Yeah.
With Keith Stewart.
Yeah,
And Rob Aarons.
yeah. Bell Ford, or the Ryder, that was called Ryder.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. Yeah, there's been a lot of musicians come through.
But more recent times, I've got to play with some of Tom's bands
Right.
few different times, just because I think nobody else wanted to carry the equipment. And if I,
Well,
if I carried the speakers and stuff, I got to play.
it's an important role. Well, at least you're healthy enough you can still do that.
That's right.
That's good. Yeah. So you guys kind of, I guess, then some point kind of went your separate ways and started your careers. And
We did.
Now,
We
yeah.
did. Yeah.
when did you start with Burlington Northern? Was that pretty soon or later?
Yeah,
on?
it was Frisco Railroad is what I
Uh-huh.
started with right out of college,
Uh-huh.
and I got hired in Springfield, but my first job was in St. Louis, and transferred around the country with them. Was in St. Louis first, and then Charlotte, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Atlanta,
Wow.
and then I switched went to a different company, different railroad in Denver,
Uh-huh.
and then Chicago with them, and then came back with them to Kansas City, and then switched again and started working with a short line company out of southern Missouri, out of Carthage, and so I was back in the
Back in
homeland
those
by that time.
So all these places you lived a year or two or a few years in each. I mean, you kind of lived in those areas, not just visited or not.
Oh,
just
no,
to
I
stay. You put your
bought houses
yeah
and the whole
yeah
works.
the whole deal. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. Chris, how about you?
I went to work.
Yeah, yeah. You didn't get to travel.
I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Traveling back and forth and back and forth.
Right.
It was just delightful to be in one place. I lived in my little house in Nixa for 20 plus years.
You did.
I was very proud of that.
Yeah.
Very, very proud of that.
Sure.
And I worked for St. John's and the hospital systems, the radiologist, Hammond's Heart Institute. But I have got a good story about the Hammond's Heart Institute.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, let's hear it.
I'm working up on the second floor.
Mm-hmm.
And cardiac rehab, pulmonary rehab, and it's a very fun place. Music and people walking.
Yeah.
and,
Right.
it's just a really great place. And the elevator, and
Some of those people are just glad to be alive, right?
yeah, I know, I am.
Yeah.
But the elevator came up, and this really good-looking man got out of the elevator, and I'm like, I never think that. I really don't.
Right.
It's got to be. I don't know that I've ever thought that before.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And he had a three-piece suit on and everything. I thought, wow, this is a good looking man. And when he stepped forward, he swung his leg forward. It was Scott.
Oh, well.
And
Well, that's good. I'm glad it was Scott
Yeah.
that you just, yeah.
well, we weren't married.
Yeah, I know,
We
I know,
hadn't
but I'm
seen each
still
other
glad, yeah.
In 25 years. I hadn't
Really?
I hadn't seen him in 25
Really?
years. And I was just, I just couldn't breathe. I was just so excited to see him. I just couldn't, it was just, it was just so wholesome and wonderful and
That
great.
is a pretty neat kind of a love story.
Yeah,
you know?
there was a real
That's a neat love-
romantic
Yeah.
song going on in the background. I remember.
Lady in
Even the-
Red.
Lady in Red,
Every
yeah.
time we hear that, there it is.
Oh,
and-
that is
and-
storybook right there.
It was. It was, and it just
Huh.
made me feel
Yeah.
the euphoria and everything to it. It just made me feel so great.
Yeah.
And then we didn't get together again until 3 or 4 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you stay in touch or
No.
how did
It
you?
was through mutual friends.
Okay.
We have high school friends that are married.
But you remember the day that you
That-
swept her off her feet though. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, you-
Oh,
okay,
sure,
so-
sure.
okay.
But yeah, we we're
Yeah.
neither one free and
I got you. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was the most
Yeah.
unbelievable
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
It really was to see, and but yeah, that was one good looking man stepping out of that. Three-piece
so
suit.
then you is 3 or 4 years. Then you started dating. Then how long until you got married? Then
We dated 5 years.
5 years. Okay. And when did you get married? Then
99, 98.
98. Okay. Well, it's
Uh,
been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
But,
I'd say it's
Tried and true.
yeah. That's good. That's
And
good.
so, yeah, and we live in Scott's boyhood home,
Uh-huh.
which is, that in itself is great.
Sure.
The
sure.
neighbors. and
Great
everything.
location there.
Yeah, great location. And
Now you do have how many children? One.
I've got two.
You got
two boys.
Two boys.
Two
yeah.
boys.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Where they at?
The elder one, Cole, is in Kansas City.
Mhm.
He has a house in it's in the downtown old area. I can't even think of the name of the area right now, but
Mhm.
but there was a house that
Yeah.
Rehabbed. It was one of those big old houses
Yeah,
that
yeah.
needed a redo, and if they could accomplish that.
Right.
And then the younger one is in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi,
Okay.
and
he's a scientist.
Is
yeah,
he?
he works
Yeah,
for the
he
state
always
of,
loved that.
state of Mississippi.
Does he? Yeah.
But they have a nice place there.
Yeah. Any grandchildren?
Just one.
One.
One 9-year-old. One.
Boy or son?
One.
Yeah.
One son,
Uh-huh.
grandson.
Yeah.
And then Cole, the older son, he hasn't. He claims he's not going to have any kids,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we'll see how that goes. He's
It's all right.
41 years old.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
still time, but
That's right. That's right. Well, that's really cool. I think you got a really neat love story, though. I mean, a
Mhm.
romantic love story. You know, you
Yeah, it,
did kind of went your ways and came back together, and here we are. So
Mhm.
that's great. So I did want to talk a little bit, and boy, time. You got 20 minutes left. Isn't that amazing how fast the hour goes by?
yeah, but we could talk forever with you.
Well, I appreciate that. I want to talk about some of the things you all are involved with. I know many people don't really realize all the things that you guys do, but I know you're involved with Hidden Waters Park, the art club. You guys are in the Saddle Club. You have, gosh, the Lake House. You're involved in classic car stuff. Are you still racing?
Yeah, I
You
still
race cars, right?
race an old vintage sports car.
Yeah.
And-
So let's
And-
let's just talk about all that.
Yeah.
Kind of start us out. Maybe
Well,
start with that if you want to.
well, sure.
Yeah.
I haven't been doing it very long.
Yeah.
It's probably 4 years now. Yes, just kind of one of those bucket list items.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked into it several times during my days.
Mhm.
That I'd love to get into some kind of sports car racing, and it was just never was the right time.
Yeah.
Once I got retired, and I had the time to work on one and go to events and
Uh-huh.
stuff. Because when you go to these sports car racing things, they usually start on like a Thursday.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a lot of free time to be able to do it that way. And go there, and it's practice days and prep days, and then
I upped his insurance.
Yeah. I don't blame you. So
Yeah.
the race would be on Sunday then, or Saturday night, or
It's,
something. usually?
there's like practice racing on Friday, and then there's real racing on Saturday
Saturday.
and Sunday, and it's essentially heats. You're
Mhm.
grouped with cars that are kind of a similar capability as
Yeah.
you are. And I'm I'm not good at it. I'm in kind of the participant category, but I'm just
So
happy to
what's
be
it
there.
take to be to have a vintage? What qualifies
Well,
as a vintage
they have
race
to
car?
be in the group that I play with. They're
Yeah.
out of Texas, and it's got a set of rules that it's 19. They have to be set up like they're 1972 or
Or
older
older? Okay.
Sports Car Club of America cars.
Okay.
And so that's the rule book that they
Yeah.
go on those rules, and so that means well, none of the big flares on the side for the great big tires and all that. They have to race pretty much like they
Kind of
looked
stock.
when they were the cars themselves, as far as power and all that's modified
Yeah.
a lot, and they're modified for safety.
Yeah.
But as far as huge body changes and all
Sure.
that, they are not.
So is 72 kind of a benchmark year? Because I know 73 is when unleaded fuel came out, and I know I'm assuming that 72 back the cars were more similar. I mean,
I suppose
didn't have
that's
as
the
much
idea. Yeah,
newer
yeah.
type stuff coming in.
Yeah, it's probably before a lot of fuel injection and
Yeah,
that sort of thing was
yeah,
starting. You know,
yeah.
there was some, but then before, uh, I don't. That's a good question as
Yeah,
to just
I'm just
why is
curious.
that
Yeah.
benchmark. But
You know, and if you
it's
think
pretty well
about,
established.
you think about a 72 Monte Carlo or a 72 Torino or whatever. Well, 73s when all those body styles got longer and, like I said, unleaded fuel and more plastic. It seemed like plastic become more
Yeah.
prevalent, or aluminum hoods or aluminum trunk lids. Things are changing a
Yeah,
lot
it's probably
in that time.
a
You know,
whole
yeah.
bunch of reasons why they
Like the
chose that one.
72 Cheyenne pickup or the C10 or whatever. You know, that's a truck that
Mhm.
very valuable. Well, a 73 is a whole different body style, and it kind of
So
that's the newer boxy stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
had to choose some kind of cutoff.
I guess,
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
was it.
Well, the
Interesting.
important part for me is that his oldest son Cole goes with him.
That is
That-
tremendous.
That is
That's a big deal.
that was a great goal.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
Because if Cole doesn't go, then I have to,
Yeah.
and I have to wear the Mickeys or something, you know.
Uh-huh.
Too loud.
Yeah. but
Yeah.
it's too loud, but Cole really enjoys it too.
Well, that is really neat.
Yeah.
That's
And he's
something
pretty
you
good
two
at
could
it.
do
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
Oh, he likes to
Yeah,
race too.
we
He's
raced
good
this. We use the same car.
Uh-huh. What is your
share.
car?
It's a 1969 Austin America.
Austin America.
What they're very similar in appearance and a lot of the mechanicals of the old original Mini Coopers.
Yeah.
They're small little sedans.
Sort of a early James Bond looking car.
Well, I don't know if you could say that.
Looks
they're-
like that. What was it? Italian.
Little Jaguar or something.
What was that Italian movie with all the little Mini Coopers that robbed everything? Kind
Oh.
of looks like
Kind of
that,
like that.
but it's bigger.
Yeah. So have you, like, how far do you travel to do this?
There's races in Decatur, Texas, which
Mhm.
is in roughly in the Fort Worth area. So I go to those, and Hallett, Oklahoma, which is just on the other side of Tulsa, so
Yeah.
not terribly far away.
Colorado.
And then I did go to Colorado once.
Yeah.
And then there's a new track up by Lake of the Ozarks.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
going to be
That's cool.
Is it?
and so it's very
It's like
very
an
nice track,
international.
and it's
Yeah.
very well set up. So that may turn into our kind of like our home track.
Right,
so we're
right.
not nearly- not
And
nearly-
how often would you go? Once a month? Twice a month?
No, it's just it's this group out of Texas. It's primarily older people, and they don't do it in the heat of the summer.
I see.
So it's just spring
Spring and fall.
spring
Yeah.
through fall thing. So you could probably go 7 or 8 times
Yeah,
if you wanted to. We usually do 3 or 4
Yeah, yeah.
in a year.
Well, that sounds like a cool hobby, especially you get to do it with your son. Well, Chris, how about you? What's your favorite things to do?
Well, I don't get to do those, but
Well, you're involved in a lot of stuff.
I
Why don't you
am,
talk
but
about that?
I still have a business. I have
Yeah.
my own business,
Mhm.
and I work in the souvenir industry, and so I provide merchandise for gift shops.
Mhm.
So I help design the T-shirts and that type of thing, which has come in really handy. I've been doing that since 40 years.
Wow.
Over 40
Yeah.
years. Learned a lot, a great deal, which has helped me then. But being now the president of Hidden Waters Nature Park, we have I think, the most fabulous brochures and pamphlets and paper type promotions that a small park can ever have.
Yeah.
And I do that. I became president of that park. And that association, Friends of Hidden Waters, back in 2018. I think I started back in 2012. And that began with Dan Beckner and Zoe Beckner,
Yep.
and with the original 3 acres through the center of that with the Callaway Cabin, and then it goes meanders up to the Pergola, which is close to Washington.
Mhm.
That is the cities, that section right in there. Dan, in the very beginning, then worked out something with Jack Waters.
Mhm.
He was very good about helping
Uh-huh.
with all of that because he needed help,
Right. Yeah.
mowing it, taking
Right.
care of it, and everything. And then after that, then the Friends of Hidden Waters became, and then we work with the Marshfield Area Community Foundation, which holds all of our monies.
Mhm.
And we then own properties like the Hidden Bluffs, and then up behind that is another house that we purchased because it's been documented and verified as the corner of it is where the Trail of Tears, where they came in. And in my mind, they probably camped all up there and walked down to get the water
Mhm.
because they can't see taking wagons down in there
Yeah.
and doing that.
Yeah.
And so there were 10 detachments of Cherokees that they brought through there,
That
which
cool.
is
Yeah.
that is an unbelievable thing.
So much history. Yeah.
It is. It's
Yeah.
just absolutely wonderful.
Hidden Waters is just really something that's so unique, and so we're so fortunate to have that park, that land, that piece of ground right here in the middle of Marshfield. I mean,
It's right
there's
in the middle.
and there's so much natural um, terrain that's so interesting there. The just the flow, the water, the rock structures, and then you throw in all the the, the wildlife and the natural plants and all of that was, I guess, initially was all natural. It wasn't like
Oh,
it wasn't like you all went out there and had to start a bunch of stuff. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you have, but initially there was all kinds of various wildlife that that naturally grew there. And so it was just such a great thing for Mr. Beckner to have the foresight to purchase the property and to begin the revival of that, of restoring it to just a beautiful place. It was just an old weedy field, I guess, or whatever.
well, and Scott remembers being little and
Yeah.
with the monitors there and playing.
Yeah,
through
all back
that.
up in there. Yeah.
There's an old barn foundation that we hope to do
Mhm.
something with. But the building that is right at the front of the park is not part of the city's part of
Yeah.
that, but that belongs to the Friends of Hidden
Mhm.
Waters, which then we remodeled
Oh,
and
yeah,
renovated.
yeah.
Gary Price.
Yep, that's right.
That was fun.
Yeah,
And and we did it right through COVID,
yeah,
which it could not have been harder.
yeah. Done a wonderful job of
It's
making a tourist center out of that. It really is, and it was
beautiful.
it was a house that was built 30 years ago, and
Mhm.
and it was in not real good shape, and you all have just renovated it and done a great job. I know
Dean,
Scott,
Dean Rainey has great skills.
Yeah.
Dean,
Yes,
Dean
Dean
Rainey,
Rainey.
and then Scott, you spent a lot of time there with
Scott
Dean.
did.
I know
Well,
that.
it's understated.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a great thing for Marshfield, and
It
all
is.
of that. So much of that is all volunteer labor, and it's just really unique. And I think then when you couple the fact that it sits right on Route 66, that even makes it even more special because there's something big coming up in actually next year now. Used to say in a couple of years, now it's next year.
Yeah, we gotta hurry.
And so go ahead and talk a little bit about that.
Well, the Route 66 will be 100 years old in 2026. Now, we've known that for 6 years.
Yeah.
And then our nation in 2026 will be 250 years old. And we want to, we're working on then with an anniversary committee, we're working on a celebration for that.
And you're the chairman.
I am the chairman.
Uh-huh.
It's my great honor to be that.
Yeah.
Along with it, there's Nicholas Inman, who is then with the 250-year
Mhm.
anniversary.
Yeah. So we kind of combined efforts. The county commissioners appointed this committee, and I'm fortunate enough to be on it. And we've been meeting regularly and have a lot of great ideas and not much money, and none of us have a lot of time, but we're going to do our best to put on some
We
kind of
are.
a celebration next year. And to start this whole thing out, obviously, we did something in the last month that we're kind of proud of. So why don't you talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely. It was with the previous Route 66 committee or
Mhm.
group, and that was originally when we had Lyndall and Randy Clare came to our first or second meeting. And they began to talk about a little gas station that was given to them out toward Niagara, just across the river. And they were trying to find a home for it, to get it moved
Right.
and find a way to move
They
it.
had to get it moved because it was going to be torn down or
Mhm.
sold to someone else, and it would move off the highway and be used for something else. So it was important to get this piece of property,
Mhm.
this building moved to a safe place that we could do something with. Go ahead.
And what I understood and in reading about it, of course, we could use some more information on it, but it originally started out as a Sinclair and then it turned into a Phillips 66. Now, that part we're not real sure,
Yeah, I think,
sure about.
and I don't want to correct you, but Sinclair is what it ended up at the final, at the end. That's why it has the
It
green. Yeah,
flipped.
it was Phillips 66 initially, and then it became a Bardol, which Bardol was very popular in those days, early days, as an oil company that provided
Mhm.
fuel along the highway. But Phillips 66 was formed in the same year as the highway was still formed, because a gentleman from Oklahoma City named Phillips, or Tulsa, he's the guy that started that Phillips 66 chain of stations, just because Route 66, and that's why he gave it the name, was gonna be the main thoroughfare, the main street of America. And a lot of those buildings, they called it a Tudor style. Tudor style meant that the roofs were higher than they were wide as far as the pitch, and you'll 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 see a lot of pictures of those Tudor style. But those were prevalent in the Phillips 66 chain that Mr. Phillips started, and that's why we're fairly confident that we it was a Phillips 66 initially, but we do have documentation that it was a Bardol then a few years after that.
And
And
Marshfield Chevrolet started in 2020,
that's right.
1926.
That's right.
So they will also be 100. So we hope
Yeah.
to get them
Yeah.
involved. And
Yeah.
but and with your help and finding the correct people, that building was moved.
Yeah.
It had to be moved
Mhm.
because I think the property sold.
Mhm.
And it was a really nice morning.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
fun
we
to
got it
watch it. And
temporarily. We've located it out on the CC Highway, the new CC Highway out by the overpass, and that's just a place to park it until we can get all the footings and the foundation and the engineered plans and all ready for its final destination, which is by the new cul-de-sac, the old We Dug In location.
mhm.
And there's a road bed there, a flat spot that is where we plan to bring that building to, and hopefully have that done in the next month or so. And
So there'll be a wonderful Route 66
mhm,
sign there. And then as you travel toward Hidden Waters, we have a very large field
mhm,
that we're going to turn into a green parking lot. And that hopefully will be then for people to stop and enjoy and have more Route
mhm,
66 acknowledgement. One of the things that I wanted the Cherokee youth, which is called Remember the Removal, they make a bicycle trip every year from, is it North Carolina?
I believe it is.
A long way.
yeah,
It's a very long
yeah.
way. And there's about 11 to 17 of them that actually are able to make it.
Oh, really?
But we have invited them through Tahlequah. I just spoke to that man, and this coming June, we're Friends of Hidden Water is going to host them for lunch.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah.
And so he wants to kind of check it out and everything
Uh-huh.
because in 2026 they'll camp there.
Mhm,
They're going to actually camp there. They'd like to get back to their roots
mhm.
and be not spending so many times in
Yeah.
hotels.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So a lot of things going on with Route 66 in Webster County and all across the state.
Mhm.
The uniqueness is there's only 10 counties in Missouri out of 114 counties. Only 10 have Route 66 that travels through them. So we are a unique area to have that opportunity to be a part of this and to allow tourism and the money to flow through Webster County, and hopefully some of it will stay here on the way through. And that's our goal, is to make this a destination for tourism. And I know there's a lot of Europeans, there's a lot of people that from the east and the west coast that travel the old road now, and we expect even more.
Well, the
Uh,
World Cup.
the World Cup will also be held in Kansas City next year, and
Mhm.
that's going to be another big event. There's just a lot of fun, exciting things happening that Route 66 will be a part of, and we're honored to be a part of that. So,
Absolutely.
anyone that wants to help or participate, we certainly welcome you to do that. And we have a lot of things planned, and we'll see where that goes. But then, in addition, the 250th birthday of our nation is next year, and we'll have a subcommittee working on that as well. So you'll see some things crop up around pertaining to that as well. I wanted to mention you're also in the art club. Tell us about the art club.
Well, the Marshfield Art Group was started back in 1944,
Mhm.
which is that's really pretty commendable for
Yeah.
women to want something in their lives besides the war.
Mhm.
And interesting thing about the meeting minutes and everything describes all of the women's gloves and their little hats, and then of course what they had for refreshments and everything.
And their men, a lot of them were off to war.
Yes,
And that is interesting to think
I
about.
don't think there's been any men involved in it.
Yeah.
Not that we wouldn't want to, but
Yeah.
it's just has evolved into that. But it is the Marshfield Art Group was one of I think 12 or 13 of surrounding towns that then we support the Springfield Art Museum. So they fundraise and money for that, and then also we give a scholarship. But out of those, all of those art groups, there's only 3 left. There's Kabul, Ava, and Marshfield's the oldest.
Yeah.
And so we are looking at becoming larger and having things. This year we decorated the squares gazebo,
Mhm.
and although it's people think that well I can't be in the art group because I can't draw or they can't it's just celebrating all things creative.
Yeah.
It's we have people that are fabulous chefs, people that do pottery,
Yeah.
people that just appreciate artwork. So if you're interested in that,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a great thing.
And then there are artists like yourself.
Yeah, we have some people that can draw.
That's right.
And we
That's
have some
great.
people that can do murals.
Yeah,
It's just amazing.
it is. It is. Murals have always fascinated me.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, yeah. So we are about out of time, but I did want to mention the lake. You guys enjoy the lake, and of course, the picture that we invited you all on Facebook with was one that you sent me of recent years when you were doing an ad for Bass Pro, I suppose.
Mhm.
Now, was that your boat, or was that just one of their
That
boats?
was one of theirs.
You guys have boats, though, right?
Well, we
Right.
normally do. We
Yeah.
don't right now.
Don't right now.
No, we
But it
didn't.
was a great picture. Kind of a neat portrait to.
Yeah, we got in the
Introduce
habit
you with.
of doing that for several years.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, you
We
get there.
morphed into being the grandparent.
Yeah.
We are now the grandparents.
Yeah,
But
so
we have
once in a
met-
while they'll need somebody in our
Yeah,
category.
in our category. But we have met some of the most fabulous people, and it's hard work.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
You have to be there at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And to get your paperwork signed, your costume on. No, that's not going to work. You need a hat. Those shoes aren't going to work.
Yeah, yeah.
And hot.
I'm sure the pay is really good too, right?
You know, it didn't start out that way.
Is it
but
better?
It's
Is it
not
better?
too bad. No.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
And but you just can't imagine what great people they
Yeah.
have in that Bass Pro,
Mhm.
cameramen and coordinators and
I'm
everything.
sure they're very, very professional too. The way
and-
that company does everything right,
And when we show up, they remember our names.
Yeah.
And so it's just
Yeah.
we've done things Beaver Park, and we were at James River one time, and it was for rain gear, and they hit us with fire hoses.
Oh.
Wasn't too glamorous.
That wasn't too glamorous. This talk soaked, really soaked, but it's great.
Yeah. That's
it's
cool.
It's just fun. Well, we do this. We do
Yeah.
that.
I just wanted to mention,
Yeah.
I know there's a group that's trying to bring back the old saddle club here in Marshfield
Oh, yeah.
to what it once was.
Yeah,
I know where
yeah.
there's lots of things going on,
Uh-huh.
and we hope they're successful in that.
Yeah.
But it reminded me when I learned of that, some fond memories of when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Your cousin Ben
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and Dwight Pruitt.
Yep. Yep.
We all had 3 ponies that were about the same size, and they were highly more.
Benny's was called Popeye.
Popeye and Smokey was Edge,
Uh-huh,
Dwight Pruitt's,
uh-huh.
and mine was Sugar, and they had been involved in it, for forever.
yeah.
And they were really good at it,
Yeah.
the barrel racing for ponies, kids barrel racing, and so they dominated.
Yeah.
And then mine was similar size, so it had similar capabilities. So I was never ahead of them, but I was ahead
yeah.
of most of the little bitty ponies.
Sure. I was in the saddle club too, or I would go with my grandfather, Fred Fraker, and of course Ben was in there, and just Quentin, Marlin, Lynette, all the
Yeah,
Marlins.
Lynette.
And
Roland's,
there was just the Rolands, Arthur. Yeah, there was just a lot of good folks in that. Tom Hyde and Kenton
Oh yeah.
Keith were in it. And,
Yeah.
But
Well,
we
that's
had
interesting.
we had we had a great time growing up as part of that. And are you involved now? Are you
No,
involved in
we're
any-
not.
Okay,
But
okay, I didn't know if you were.
we kind of threatened to be a little bit, but
Yeah.
we think it's real nice that
Yeah,
some people are
it
trying to
is.
do it.
It's
Yeah.
sat there kind of dormant for a long time.
Mhm,
Yeah.
just-
They've worked really
They
hard.
have, and they've got that truck pull they're doing there now for the FFA. I think it was a fundraiser,
And that
and
was
that's been a
big.
well attended event. I
Mhm.
mean,
We
it's
could
been
hear
a
that at our
yeah.
house.
Mm.
they've done a great job with that.
But there used to be, what I recall anyway, it's quite the big show events. You know, trailers come in from all
Oh,
over and they
yeah.
do
Yeah, back
all the
before.
fancy horses.
Maybe we can tag that as a Route 66
Yeah.
event. something
Well,
like
you know,
that.
the Ava is the headquarters of the Foxtrotters World Celebration and all
Mhm.
that. And of course, back in those days, I mean, Ava it wasn't near as big down there, but you had these other towns around. Even Fordland had one, Elkland had a horse show, Marshfield, and all these people traveled to those horse shows, and
Mhm.
it was a big time. It was a big event. But Ava was kind of the granddaddy of all of them, and then now it's grown to become a huge thing.
It's
Yeah,
an
and
And
international.
all the others have kind of phased out, but
I'd like to see it succeed. And
yeah,
because it'd be a great opportunity
Mhm.
for everybody that's put so much effort in it. I think they've gotten grants
good.
and made some big changes there, and they have big plans.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's good to have all kinds of varieties of things for people to do. We all have
Mm.
different interests, and so I'm proud to be a part of a community that still values all that, and people supporting each other and helping each other, and whether they're not necessarily our interest, but we can still wish them well and help them in any way we can. And that's kind of what we try to do here at the community center. We have it available for people, whatever they might be doing.
Well, I had spoke to a woman at an appointment in Springfield, and we talked about where I was from.
Yeah.
She says, I just love going through Marshfield.
Yeah, yeah.
She said it's got such
Doesn't
a
it make you feel good?
yeah. It's got such a great feel to it, and she said, and people seem to be interested in it. It's got a hometown.
Yeah.
thing.
Of course, our 4th of July celebration, the Independence Day parade, is just nobody can touch it.
No.
It's just the granddaddy of all of them, and it's what I've always said. Just carry on, keep the tradition. Don't mess around with it much. You can tweak it a little bit, but you got to keep it kind of the same, and it'll continue to do well because it's a part of our history. It's a part of our culture that no matter how old you are or how old you were when you first attended, it's something that people drive here for that day to spend 2 hours watching a parade,
And it's
and then they
hot.
may turn around and go back home.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You made it to the parade, and that's the
Mhm.
one thing that we need to carry on. And so there's an obligation to do that,
Mhm.
and we'll try to, of course, always do that.
With that Route 66, it's going to be bigger.
Well, we hope so. That ought to be a big one that year, and just a year away, year and a half away now. Hard to
Sneaking
believe.
up on
It
us.
is.
Don't worry about it. We'll get there.
Yeah. Well, folks, this has been so fun. Just really honored that you're my friends, number one, and number
Yes.
two, that you came today to share a little bit about your lives. What we're trying to do is preserve history for future generations. We've missed so many opportunities in my lifetime to not write down the stories that we've been told, the history that's been shared. And so that's what I'm trying to do. It's
Mhm.
just, and then again, the connections we all have as human beings, we're connected in some way or another. And I just think it helps to keep us all on the straight and narrow, and loving each other and doing what we need to be doing as a community and as a people. So,
Lift each other up.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So,
I've got an old friend, he's from Marshfield,
Uh-huh.
Jim Ragsdale.
Uh-huh.
I stay in touch with.
yeah,
He's always trying to get people to write their life story.
yeah,
Tell
Yeah.
your story.
yeah,
And I've neglected to do it yet, but I'm going to get that done.
yeah.
And hopefully
Maybe
a
that's
lot of
your
people
New
will
Year's
do.
resolution.
There you go.
Well, again, that's kind of what we're trying to do. This is it's a very quick overview, but still, it's just to have a little bit of history about the different families and the different people and the connections. I think it'll be really interesting. Can you imagine if we had that from our grandparents or our great grandparents from, say, 100 years ago, or even 80 years ago, what it would be like if we could sit and watch
Mm-hmm.
videos of them being interviewed about their lives.
Yeah, that would be
and
great.
I think it would just be something that would really be a neat thing, and that's what I'm trying to do with this. Did want to mention, since you mentioned Ben, my cousin, passed away a week or two ago, a week and a half ago, and you know, we're going to miss Ben. He's a very well loved in our community, and certainly been a part of my life, all of my life. And so, condolences to Emily and the family. But I just wanted to mention that he was on our show. He and Gary Price together back about some of my first guests actually. So over a year ago now, and always had great stories of attending Marshfield High School together. And you all are from that same era. So
And
Yeah,
his,
you were even in business together.
that's right. We had Cousins Farm Supply.
and his memorial is the end of January,
I think it's going to be January the 26th.
26th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Celebration of Life type memorial. So, but anyway, with that, I think it's time to go. And I do have some more guests lined up. You're going to find interesting. And so appreciate everybody watching the show, and subscribe if you like. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right.
Thanks for inviting us.
You betcha. You
We
betcha.
appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks.